Thank you, thank you.
Wait. I don't think they're ready for you yet, Dennis. What I'm going to do is I'm a strong believer in speaking things into existence. So when you say something, I believe it's going to happen. So I'm going to split the room up down the middle. This side, we're going to do a chant. Well, everybody's going to do a chant.
Who are you?
I'm Michael Reeves, and I'm a student of Dennis.
I knew, but I don't know if you knew. I thought you'd think some guy just taking over for me, man.
All right. So I want this side of the room. You're going to chant pop, tech, pop, tech. And then this side of the room is going to say, we can change, okay? So it's going to go pop, tech, we can change. Pop, tech, we can change, okay? So we're going to do a little rehearsal. So when I point to you, that's when you say your piece, okay? Everybody got it? For the most part? Okay.
Pop, tech, we can change. Pop, tech, we can change.
One more time.
Pop, tech, we can change.
Okay, I think they're ready.
Get out of here. I didn't tell him to do that, so thank you for having me here. We all know that everyone gets their 15 minutes of fame. Part of the fame is the 15 minutes is right here. We have big numbers telling us to get out of here after 15 minutes. But the other way is when you get fired, you get famous. Now, I heard Kurt talk about how many people have been fired in this room, honestly. There we go. Okay, now how many really? Look at that. That's a great percentage. So we've all done great work in our life, and then we get fired and we get known. So that's what happened to me. So I didn't tell you guys, put it on yet, but you can. So when I got fired, they wrote a book about Dennis Lipke and his fight for a better school. And who's happiest when they write a book? But my mom. And she didn't really believe they were writing a book. And I had the cover beforehand. And so I sent my mom the cover, and I'd talk to her every Sunday, and I'd say, Mom, the book's about to be out. And I don't think she really believed me. You know, she thought I made up a fake cover and sent it with her thumb picture on it. And then I got the call one day and say, Mom, the book is out. And as any good mom, she got all dressed up. She lived in L.A., and she went out to the bookstore, and she's telling me the story afterwards. She walks into the bookstore. She didn't even look. She just said as loud as she can, they wrote a book about my son, making sure everyone heard it. It's called Doc. And she's standing there very proud. I picture her. And the guy goes in the back room, and he comes out. And now you guys can switch. He comes out with this book, Doc. I'll let you see it. You can switch slides here. This is about a rapist, a medical doctor, who was raping his patients out west. The guy gives, this is honest truth, and the guy gives the book to my mom. My mom runs out of the store. She actually told me she didn't leave her apartment for 2 weeks after this. So, and by the way, this made the bestseller list, and my mom bought this one. So, so then I called the publisher because I got a little nervous. And so when the publisher redid it in paperback, they got very nervous and changed, you guys can go, and they changed the name to Teacher instead of Doc. And it was scary that day when I was giving a talk, and it was about 2,000 people there, and there was a woman in the front row with this book. And I'm going, no, not me, not me. So, and the other good thing that came out of it is NBC then did a movie. And I don't know if you guys are old enough, but L.A. Law, Michael Tucker, he played me in the Monday night movie called The Town Torn Apart. And what I've done, by the way, is I'm trying to get another 15 minutes of fame. So I copy these illegally. If there's anyone from NBC, thank you. I copy these illegally. If you want a copy, it's the only place you can. Just give me your card and the name. I bootleg them and send them out. And so I may be arrested in a minute, but my life, it kind of fits with the story about the school in Brooklyn, Steve's work, which is doing incredible work in trying to make change. And I find myself somewhere in the middle. When he talked about the systems and the wisdom, I'm trying to, it's great to get people like Steve trying to change the system. We have other people we're working with, but also how do you change the structure of what's going on inside the school. And I've been a principal most of my life. thought I was kind of done being a principal, came to Brown University to kind of spread the word, and then the commissioner there asked myself and my colleague Elliot Washer if we would start a school. And I was very cocky at that time, and all times. And I said, only if we could do it exactly how we wanted. Not thinking he'd say yes, and he said yes. So we started thinking about schools, and I got a question to ask you. They did this survey, 300,000 students they asked, name one word that describes school. What is it? Boring. That's the sad part. We know that, man. And so we said, we're going to do schools that aren't boring. That's why kids drop out. That's his beautiful or horrible, whatever you call it, example about the LA Stadium. That's why people drop out. They're bored. They're not engaged. And so we really, and that's what matches so well with the conference, we really closed our eyes and said, we're not going to tweak around the edges. This is too big. We really have to redesign. And if we have that opportunity, what would school be if we didn't know there was such a thing as school? If you didn't know there was school and you were educating your kid at home, do you think you'd put him in the living room, have him read a book, and ring a bell for 45 minutes, and run him to the bathroom, do science for 45 minutes, and run? You wouldn't do that. Who would think of that? So, really. So, and that's what a lot of reformers are doing. They're trying to make that better. And I worry about that. And they're trying to make teachers a little better in a system that doesn't work. They're trying to make materials a little better. So we said it's really about engaging kids one student at a time. And how do you take each student, develop their own personal learning plan? You have the goals. You want everyone to learn to read and to write and to apply knowledge. And how do you then find their interests and passions? Let them be with adults and learn those passions. Follow those interests. Develop those passions. Then come back to school, and you don't need the regular classes. How do you put all the pieces together? I had dinner last night with a woman who was an engineer, and she said, in my college, I use about, now as an engineer, 5% of what I learned. How do we get the real stuff to learn? And that's what we do. And we have to turn things on our head. We have one teacher following the kid for 4 years, and they're a generalist. So every kid in our school has a different curriculum. Let me give you a little idea of one of the kids. This was my first year. And a student comes in, Marin, and says, I want to study death. So I think that's pretty weird, but I'm supposed to be this cool principal saying you can study whatever you want, follow your interest and passion. And, you know, I'm saying, is this right? I don't know. You know, she's visiting cemeteries and funeral homes, and I'm just going along because that's what I said I would do. And it was my first year, you know. And then every 9 weeks, the kids, we don't give tests. They exhibit their work. They have to stand in front of a committee of parents, mentors, teachers, their other colleagues, their other students, and talk for an hour about their work. So I'm there, and this girl, Marin, stands up, and she was a hellraiser in middle school, didn't do anything, and all of a sudden she takes out about this much piece of paper and said, I did 17 drafts of this paper. And it turns out her brothers and sisters and her first family were all killed coming over from Cambodia, okay? And she had to deal with that. And so she talked all about that and wrote about that and studied about that and thought about that for 9 weeks. And I remember raising my hand and saying, Marin, are you going to continue studying this? And she said, no, it's been in my mind 90% of my life. It's been in my brain. And I have finally cleared it out, and I can move on. And I felt so privileged that we could have a school that would allow that, okay? Rather than saying, that's nice, you only have 10% left in your mind, but go to that algebra class, go to that geography. She went on to college, she became a management major, she actually did an internship with me as a senior. So that's the kind of, interest, being good or bad, you want to capture. I had another boy come to me, and he said he wanted to study the Vietnam War, and everybody around that time wanted to study the 60s. And I wasn't in the war, but I had traveled in Southeast Asia, and I gave him some slides. And he picked a mentor who was building a monument for the soldiers, and he took a class because you have this flexibility of a schedule. We don't have 45-minute periods. You build your own schedule. from 9th grade on. So the kid took a class at Providence College. We're in Providence. Got a B+ in a class in the Vietnam War. That summer, there was a teacher, Professor at Brown, that was teaching teachers how to teach the Vietnam War. Our kid took that, and he came to me his senior year, and I said, Joe, I never asked you why the interest. And he kind of got like pale, and he said to me, ever since I was 5 years old, I had asked my dad about the war. His dad was a soldier in the war. And every year, my dad turned and walked away and never said a word. And I made sure I asked him every single year. For his senior project, he took his dad back to Vietnam. Joe Jr. was 18, our kid. His father was 18 when he was in the war. They had opposing views. The kid did a website for his project about how to talk to families about a war. Now, did I care that he knew about the Boer War? No, he studied something in depth. He worked on that. He went on to become a history major. He's now a teacher at our school. So that's the kind of way that has to change, because all this tweaking around the edge won't work. And Steve talked about the dropout numbers, and they're ridiculous. And when this happened, and I'll just finish up this part. So we got our 4th year, and we were doing pretty well, and everyone was kind of laughing at us. No classes, come on, they're working out here, what's going on? And then senior year, every one of our kids got accepted to college. We had a 97% attendance rate. The city had a 70% attendance rate. We had a 2% dropout. The city had a 46% dropout. And all of a sudden, people started going, whoa. And then I got lucky. It was around the time Bill Gates was starting to do education. He sent his head man to our school. And I'll never forget it. He sat there talking to Elliot and I. And then, we're pretty good at the BS. And he said, enough of you. I'm going in the cafeteria. And I go, oh, no. I had this one kid that I'm sorry to swear, this one kid, and this was a cafeteria in a public building, so she liked to freak everybody out, who would say fuck 5 times every day at lunchtime. And I'm going, I got the head of Gates coming, and Susan's gonna, and then I thought she was absent that day. It was my best. And he walked out an hour later and actually gave us $5 million and said, give me 12 schools. And right now we have 73 schools around the country. We have we have schools in the Netherlands and Australia. And because I didn't have enough to do, 6 weeks ago we started a College Unbound, because I'm angry at colleges too. But I'm going to stop for, they do a worse job, I'll tell you the secret. So I brought a student, that guy who interrupted me, is Michael Reeves, and we get a picture of Michael. And he was a student at our school in Connecticut, and our first college student. So he'll give you some idea. Thank you.
So my story, hi Mom and Dad, I know you're watching. My story, I've never been one of those students to sit in the class and raise my hand, or to be one of those people that are at the top of the class. I hated being at the bottom of the class. I was just your typical average student. In middle school, I was very tall. I was self-conscious. And all I cared about was just being in the in crowd. While in middle school, the sitcom Nip Tuck came out. I know you guys know about Nip Tuck. So I saw how much money they were making, and I was like, oh yes, I want to be a plastic surgeon. And I just knew down in my heart I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. I'll be making a lot of money, and I would be helping people. Helping people, yeah. So when I heard about the big picture, and I heard about, each student you get to have your own internship twice a week, and each student received their own laptop, I was like, oh yeah, they sold me, because I wanted to go work with a plastic surgeon. I didn't end up working with a plastic surgeon. I got an internship at the St. Francis Hospital, and I was working with a cardiologist. I was 14 years old at this time, so this was a big deal for me. Like, I was going around bragging about it, I'm working at a hospital, I'm only 14-year-old, check me out, But I hated it, because when I got there, they didn't really know too much about the program and how I was actually supposed to be learning. So I was doing a lot of clerical work, and I was bored, and I had to tell my advisor, because we call our teachers advisors, I had to tell my advisor, I was just telling her how I was unhappy with what I was doing there. And so she went in and she set it up where I was working. I actually started working with a surgeon, a cardiologist surgeon, and he allowed me to see different surgeries. One of the main surgeries he allowed me to see was an open heart bypass surgery. I woke up early one morning and I got dressed in my scrubs and I was standing right with the patient. The cardiologist was talking to me. The surgery took about 6 hours. And I walked out of there. I have a strong stomach. I walked out of there, went and had a full lunch, and I realized, I said, okay, plastic surgery is not for me because I can't stand nowhere for 6 hours like that. I think somebody will go on cardiac arrest. So I made that decision, and that's how I know the Big Picture High School was good for me, because I would have went through high school and then through college wanting to be a plastic surgeon, would have got accepted to medical school and then said, oh, I don't want to do this. So I would have wasted a lot of money had I not known that while in high school. From this, I created a brochure which talked about the intraoperative part of a bypass surgery. It basically it answers the questions while you're sleeping. What is happening during the surgery? Because a lot of people have the question, like, what's going to happen to me while I'm sleeping? So that's when the Big Picture way of learning really clicked, because I was able to follow my interest and passion, and I was able to take what I experienced and help other people with it. And I'm just a big believer in helping other people. I then, later on, I've done many projects. I went from being a plastic surgeon to wanting to be a psychologist to wanting to be a chef when I retire to, to now I want to be a social worker. And I found my true passion, which is working with youth. My senior year of high school, I created my own after-school program named Stand Up, Don't Lower Your Standards. It's a 10-week program that focuses on positive self-esteem, personal power, and just how to become your own person. And I feel like it's for 5th and 6th graders, because I feel like if you instill the fundamentals of that early on in a child's life, it helps them as they grow so that they know not to follow like the bad influences, or they can choose on their own whether they want to follow the bad influences in life. Okay. So applying to colleges, I felt like, okay, I got my non-traditional way of learning out of the way, and I wanted to do traditional learning. Dennis came and talked to me about College Unbound, and I just knew out of all the experiences I've had while in high school that this was just the way I should do college. Right now, there are 8 other college students: Alex, Gary, Ariel, Alicia, Talia, Gino, and me. We started college by doing a cross-country trip to LA. We went to each person's hometown, and we were able to do oral documentation and have interviews with different people. We were actually able to meet different senators and governors, and that was just the real way of doing real-world learning, and that was a great experience for me. This whole process, the college experience, is kind of a scary thing because we're doing college in a new way, and so I don't know what to expect. I don't know where I'm going to end up being. But that's why I feel like we as people have to change our mindset on how education is, so that when we have these unique ways of doing education, as long as you're learning something and having experiences, I think that's what we should take into consideration, not where you get your degree from as far as like Harvard and Yale and all that stuff. All that stuff doesn't matter. I feel like if you have that experience, it will take you to where you need to go. Thank you.
You got twice the applause that I did. I'm just going to finish up, and I forgot to be showing some of these slides. Flip through a couple slides. Does anyone hear me? I'll get through in the next minute. This is a wild one. I forgot this one. I don't usually use slides. Michelle convinced me to do it, but that's a pretty wild fact that every 12 seconds a kid drops out of high school in this country. Keep going, please. We'll catch up. So there's Michael. That was supposed to be 5 minutes ago. Let's go. Next. There's his class right there. You can see it. And this is, okay, thank you. Here's the dirty little secret. Colleges are worse than high schools. Take a look at this figure. For first-generation college students, like most dropouts in high schools are around 50%, 60%, some a little worse in communities. Look at this. 89% of kids, first generation, that means the first in their family to go to college, whatever culture, color they are, 89% don't make it. Only 11% make it. And then what colleges say, students aren't ready to come to my school. So what got me angry and going is that I think colleges need to say, we need to be more student ready than just blaming the high school or then blaming the middle school. There's something wrong. It's not that 89% of first generation kids can't make it in school. That's just there's something wrong with the institution. And that's why we started College Unbound. And our whole program is a continuation of the high school. It's trying to get the real skills out there. And who knows what the jobs are going to be. And we work life to text rather than text to life. So there's a kid working out with an architect. There's a kid working out with a research organization. There's a kid working in an advertising agency. They're getting the nuances. They're getting all the real work. They're dealing with adults. And then we back on campus are making sure they got the reading and the writing and the analysis of stuff to make them even better. But when I looked at everyone's job title here, I mean, it's absurd. Do you think we could, who is it? Figure out how to train Katie to make sounds like elephants? Is that in any curriculum? You know, we have, I mean, I looked at all you all got weird, a food designer. People keep asking me, Margie, tomorrow, what's a food designer? You know, this thing up there, Reuben. I mean, who knew that, you know, what that would be? So you gotta, you know, we gotta train our students to be able to talk, to be able to communicate, be able to solve problems, to work with others. That's what we gotta do. And you don't get that by college classes, by teachers who care less about teaching. And so we have to change that. And the other good news as I'm closing up is that when our mayor yesterday, John Fetterman, was talking about his sad town, I went up to him after and I asked about his schools. And in most small towns, they send the kids outside to other towns, which is another thing that ruins a small town because they have no identity. When I was in a small town, that was it. Everyone came to the basketball games. Everyone came. And so I asked him, I told him that I'd be interested in developing a K-12 system. I mean, we all felt frustrated out there. And I said I would be willing to develop a K-12 system in his district, whatever money he pays an outside district to send the kid away. Let's take that money. I put a call in already. I know the education director of the Heinz Foundation that's in Pittsburgh to see if we can get the support. There's plenty of buildings there. And so we can all be happy that I think as soon as I get home tomorrow, I'm going to start moving ahead and see if we can't get him to keep all his kids, which could bring people in that community. So. Now, stay standing for a second. Stay standing for a second. The nasty thing is I got a standing O off his standing O, so that's great, man. But here's the last thing to leave you visually. Take a look around. There's about 500 people in this room. Since we started at 9 o'clock, 800 students have dropped out of high school. So this room. So that gives us some kind of follow-up what Steve's saying and about the Brooklyn School. We have to do something. This is very important, and you can't tweak around our edges because this will continue. So you can sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc, and thank you, Michael. That's great.